Jane Nara is kidnapped by the government after an incident when she was working overseas for a businessman who lived a double life. He was in charge of an investment firm, albeit a front to fund a crew of hitmen. Jane slowly catches on to Ted's criminal activity, and suspected terrorists get loose in Cuba. Blinds. Jane left the country for a sense of adventure, and to escape the monotony of what she thought was a dead-end data entry job. She lived in Nevada and just earned a bachelor's degree in business administration. She dreamt of working as a private security contractor, deploying overseas, and visiting locales around the world. She had been doing her research in her free time and soon was able to become fully licensed as a private security contractor. She found an advertisement for a job in the classified section of the newspaper. The company hiring was Andy Investments. Job duties would be divided equally between guarding the property and building investment portfolios for clients, among other things. Jane got the job. The firm was located in Cuba, about 30 miles from Guantanamo Bay. At Andy Investments, Jane was greeted inside by a man with tortoiseshell glasses. He introduced himself as Ted, and they went inside to begin orientation. The attire for the position was semi-professional, sport polos and khakis or dress pants. Jane was issued a service weapon, and post orders were surprisingly simple: keep the property secure and make people more money. Ted kept to himself for the most part. Besides the occasional meeting, he was always alone at his desk. The investment portfolios were impressive, from double to quadruple interest annually, and the documentation and record keeping was extremely thorough. The company had its employees write off even dollar coffees. Jane had the chance to be a part of everything going on here. She loved being a part of something bigger, and she was promised nearly limitless room for advancement. Many staff at Gitmo took advantage of Ant Investment services. These soldiers were some of the toughest in the world. Guarding the most wanted terrorists and other career criminal suspects was just as it seemed. Most were held on indefinite sentences for punitive reasons, further questioning, and interrogation. Ted knew many guards at Guantanamo Bay by first name and would keep nothing but amicable relations with them, for now. Jane worked relentlessly for about a month. She made her clients happy and followed security orders. There wasn't a single security incident yet, but she couldn't believe how spotless and perfect the company seemed. Her boss, Ted, always had a weird vibe about him, like he was hiding something. After looking around more thoroughly, she had found a suspicious invoice in payroll. Apparently, Ted had been redirecting other employees' payments to his own bank account. Jane decided that she should talk to Ted first to make sure it wasn't a false alarm. She went to his office. Caught midway through a phone call, Ted held a finger and pointed at a chair. Aha, thanks for everything, you too. He laughed and hung up. Hi, Jane, what brings you here? He said. I wanted to talk to you about something. Do you have a minute? She asked. Sure, all the time in the world. What's up? So you see, I found some wire transfer invoices in our records. There's almost $1.2 million from payroll that disappeared. There's signatures on every invoice. Miss Nara held out the document. Ted looked like he was about to speak, but was interrupted when the door was kicked in, and federal agents swarmed into the room. 3 weeks earlier. Ted sighed. He was losing hope in his crew. He had hired 7 hitmen to secretly help 2 suspected terrorists escape Guantanamo. They were alleged to be part of ISIS, the Islamic State, and the assumption was that they would return to their previous lives. Ted was enticed into doing this when he was given some info from a guard at the prison. The guard said they were kept trying to send messages from their cells, and the inmates were promising $5 million upon their successful escape. Jane unknowingly laundered a good percentage of her company's payroll, diverting funds to an offshore bank account with less restrictions and less scrutiny. The start of Mr. Andy's double life coincided with Jane being brought on. He had been through a terrorist training camp at a young age. Ted's plan was to help the imprisoned terrorists push U.S. military troops out of Iraq. The schematics for Guantanamo Bay were pricey, but the black market somehow had everything. Ted kept stalling on the escape plan, but with time was the day of the escape. Since he had good relations with the guards, no one suspected a thing if he popped in to visit. Ted was careening down a path of dishonesty, a crumbling path. The wake of destruction left behind would only make things even worse. It began when Ted staged a medical issue and he and his men wore counterfeit ID badges. Present day. She fought back urges to argue with FBI agents, knowing that she was powerless without a lawyer on her side. Ted and Jane were facing multiple charges. Ted Andy's hit squad had killed several guards, and the two brothers were out of Guantanamo Bay and on their way back to their home country, Iraq. Jane knew she had to talk her way out of this. She was worried that she might fail to prove herself innocent. The initial proceedings of the investigation were well underway when Ted and Jane were placed into different interrogation rooms to be questioned. The money that Ted pilfered was traced back rather exhaustively to his Swiss bank account. The money sent to the hitmen was also traced, and Ann Viesmann's name was discovered as a source of funding. So, who are you? The agent asked politely. My name is Jane Nara. I thought you should know. I've been wrongfully accused of these charges, Jane responded. Hold on, just your name will suffice for now. How do you know Ted? I was hired on about a month ago. He was my boss, but it doesn't look that way anymore. I worked for his investing firm in Cuba. I had no idea he was up to something at first, but the clues started adding up and things just seemed off. That will do. What do you know about his involvement with Guantanamo Bay? Asked the agent. I knew he had offered his services to some of the people there. He wasn't the most talkative about it. Why do you ask? Let me ask the questions, but I will try to give you some information. We think Mr. Andy was involved in abetting two suspected terrorists to escape the prison. We traced some suspicious wire transfers he made. He paid off a group of assassins to get the job done. He killed some people. We think this plan to break the brothers out is part of something bigger. And we suspect these escaped prisoners are on their way back to reunite with the terrorist cell, and a dangerous one, if you'll believe that, the agent explained. Whoa, I had no idea about any of that. I suppose I just thought he was greedy. I obviously am out of a job. I can only hope for the best. I would like to vouch for myself. I by no means was a part of any of this. We know. The next step is clearing your name, officially. Then I have a proposition for you. We could really use your help to stop these brothers from escaping. What do you say? Would you like to parachute onto a yacht in the middle of the ocean? What? Like I'm trained to do that. Relax, you'll get all the training you need. I'll give you some time to think about it, but I need an answer by today. Wait, what's in it for me? The agent paused and said, Jane, this may not be glamorous. It may be risky, but you'll be saving lives. Ted was guilty, and the feds knew it. They read him like a book. The details of the case expanded when one of Ted's killers got sloppy and talked too much about the escape to one of his friends. The government certainly had its capabilities, including wiretapping. Ted played dumb until an agent brought out irrefutable evidence of the recorded phone call. The hitman and Ted were under a magnifying glass for what they had done. Jane reasoned that they would get what they deserved. Jane's FBI training began with basic physical fitness tests consisting of timed runs, swimming, and combative skills. There was a certain standard of fitness to proceed in training. She scored very high in timed runs, average in swimming, and average in combative skills. There was plenty of room for improvement. She was too passive in role-playing exercises. In 5 days, Jane Nara graduated the Bureau's only Special Operations Group training program. 3, 2, 1, go, shouted the freefall instructor. Jane jumped out of the plane. She was in freefall school, a class designed to instruct its students how to freefall, or how to jump and parachute from an airplane. She couldn't help but to admire the beauty of the horizon and the landscape while falling through the sky. It was surreal, like she could see everything. Jane Nara had the new title FBI Special Operations Trainee. Her first mission was to stop the two escaped brothers. This meant preventing them from establishing any contact with one of the world's most ruthless terrorist cells. The specifics of what unfolded were mostly classified, but a handful of media agencies published articles outlining the event. The yacht manned by the escapees was 6 days into its journey across the Atlantic Ocean. A decent chunk of the distance remained for them to reach land, but they would never make it. A stealth jet made its way to the yacht from a nearby aircraft carrier. The jet carried the Special Operations Group over the enemies. They leaped into free fall and parachuted down, landing softly on the deck. The watercraft was about 30 feet in length. There was a cabin with multiple rooms underneath. This team was comprised of 7 members, many with military or law enforcement backgrounds. They divided themselves around the boat, with the majority stacking up at the cabin door. The door was locked, though it was no match for the shotgun breaching rounds. Jane had a chance to use her taser and subdued one brother while another team member tackled the other, slamming him into the wall.
There was a peaceful time following the capture of the 2 brothers. Acceptance of a diversity of worldviews would become more important than ever. Peacemaking intentions of countries required diplomacy, a globalized outlook, and would hopefully thwart terror. Sources monitoring terrorist activity reported a downtick in attacks, despite the aftermath. For the Iraqis, there was not only a clash between different faiths, but also from the authority of the U.S. military's presence. The destruction of the enemy was shocking. Improvised explosive devices, IEDs, were their main choice of weapon. The brothers had orchestrated most of the recent attacks, and soldiers from around the world were tasked with maintaining the upper hand. It was unfortunate that so many were killed in combat or by collateral damage. Jane provided counterintelligence and operational support to defend innocent people. Her alleged involvement with the prison escape was excused, and Ted and his cohorts received lengthy sentences for their atrocities. Jane did her part, alongside some of the bravest.